Dyslexia is very misunderstood. It has really nothing at all to do with seeing things backwards, which is what many people think when they say, my child has dyslexia. He writes his name backwards. Well, that's not dyslexia. What is dyslexia? Well, actually there's two subtypes of dyslexia. One is called phonological dyslexia and one is called orthographic dyslexia. Let me talk a little bit about phonological dyslexia. The 26 letters in the English language make up 44 discrete sounds. These sounds are called phonemes. Now, every word we read or hear is a combination of different variations of these phonemes being put together into bundles. There's actually 1,100 combinations of phonemes that can go together to make the sounds we read or speak. Now, the average human brain should be able to manage 16 phonemes per second as far as the rate by which these phonemes pass through particular brain regions. Some people's brains just can't manage 16 phonemes per second. So what you end up with is difficulty with the differentiation of the phonemes, telling, for example, wa from ra or fa from tho. So a kid says, I'm 3 years old instead of 3, or I need to go to the bathroom instead of the bathroom. Or the kid says, I want biscotti instead of spaghetti, because their brain didn't even process the S in spaghetti. They don't even know there is an S in spaghetti. Or they don't know that wa and ra are actually two different sounds. Their brain has those sounds merged together as one. So anyway, decoding of sound is the first and most important aspect of learning to read. The second one is called phonological segmentation. So not only do you need to manage these sounds, but you need to be able to hear where one sound starts and one sound ends. So if you say to a little child, 5 or 6 year old, what sounds are in cat? Or if you leave the k off of cat, what is left? And they say puh, you're in trouble. Because that kid has no clue that cat is made up of 3 discrete sound units, k, a, t. So the ability to hear where one sound starts and one sound ends, for example, say mat without the m sound, or say powder without the d sound, or say sling without the l sound. Those kind of little measures clearly tell you if kids can tell where one sound starts and one sound ends. Now the complementary skill to that is, instead of separating the sounds, can you put the sounds together? Can you take parts of sound that come together to make a word and make the word? For example, you say to the child, what word do these sounds make? Sh, L, and most kids can say shell. Now, as it gets more and more complex, some kids have a real hard time putting sounds together into wholes. So you say mu, u, na, what sound is that? And they say coon, or they say boom, or they say choom, but they don't get the word moon. Now, not only will that impact the development of the reading system, but that will impact the development of the listening system. If you don't have good phonological decoding, phonological segmentation, and phonological closure, it's going to be very hard to even listen. So a lot of these kids are identified as also having ADHD and attentive type. Maybe 60% of kids identify with ADHD and attentive type. They don't have problems paying attention. They have problems listening at the level of their brain. So they're looking out the window, looking in their book bag, they're not paying attention to the teacher, because managing the sound is the problem, not paying attention. Now those kids with those phonological deficits will have an extremely difficult time developing phonics. Those are the core skills required to develop phonics. Now once a kid's been reading for a period of time, the brain becomes much less dependent on decoding words and using a phonetic approach, and it uses an approach that it has to recognize objects quickly. So that's called the object recognition. Object recognition then has to be paired with the associated words. So for example, if you see the word cat, it takes you 2 milliseconds to recognize the object is cat, and it's not cart, it's not cant, and it's not cup, it's cat. Then your brain knows it knows that object, and then it has to pair that object with the word that goes with that object. Now that phenomena doesn't always happen as readily and as quickly as it could or should, which leads to orthographic difficulties reading. So when you have a child reading and they misread similar words, or they take a lot longer to read a page of words than their peers, it does not mean they have phonological dyslexia. It does not mean that they haven't been provided adequate reading instruction. It may mean that the orthographic aspects of managing written text are problematic in this case. Another example of orthographic difficulties is kids that spell phonetically correct, but it's wrong. For example, if you spell boat, B-O-T-E, or B-O-A-T, which one is correct? They're both correct, but which one is right? The one that's right is the B-O-A-T. But what if your brain couldn't tell which version of boat was correct? It's more of a visual editing disorder. Your brain can't quickly recognize the way words should look. Now, the way words look also drives fluency when you read. If you can't quickly recognize the way words look, it will slow down the speed of reading as well. So there's about 20% of kids that struggle with reading. There's brain systems that are critical to efficient orthographic object recognition, and it's called grapheme phoneme association speed. And there's brain systems responsible for managing the sounds. That's termed phonological processing. So if you have weaknesses in either phonological or orthographic processing, they will manifest themselves in poor reading. Now, not only will they manifest themselves in poor reading, but if the child otherwise has average or better intelligence, they're going to realize they're poor readers, and it's going to take a huge hit on self-esteem. It's also going to manifest itself in difficulty paying attention. So these things don't exist in isolation. Attention problems, self-esteem problems, reading and learning problems are not problems. They're learning styles that don't match how teachers are teaching. So we need to figure out what's going on with each kid and create a pathway for success, many times by changing the teachers, not by changing the student. We can put kids through very expensive, very time-consuming, very rigorous prescriptive tutorial programs, and we do. There's a point in time where you have to do a cost-benefit analysis as far as it relates to, do we keep trying to change this kid to learn like other kids, or do we change the system to teach the kid in the way they learn best? And I must say, since neuroimaging and the most recent phase changes in neuroscience that have made all this stuff so crystal clear, we're having a lot more success getting schools to change than we ever did in the past. So technology is there, the tricks are there, the methodologies to get kids to learn in a way that doesn't go through the reading modality is more available now than ever before. We just have to find these kids and get them on the right path.